Cuban Missile Crisis, October 1962. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a 13-day confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union, sparked by the discovery of Soviet ballistic missiles in Cuba. It is considered one of the most perilous moments of the Cold War and a high point of tension between the two superpowers. Key facts about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Background. In 1962, the United States and the Soviet Union were engaged in the Cold War, a geopolitical and ideological rivalry. The U.S. had placed missiles in Turkey, near the Soviet Union, while the Soviets sought to strengthen their influence by establishing a missile base in Cuba. Discovery of missiles. On October 14, 1962, U.S. reconnaissance planes discovered evidence of Soviet medium-range ballistic missiles in Cuba. These missiles could potentially carry nuclear warheads and reach major U.S. cities. President Kennedy's response. President John F. Kennedy addressed the nation on October 22, 1962, revealing the presence of Soviet missiles in Cuba and announcing a naval blockade, referred to as a quarantine, of Cuba to prevent further Soviet shipments. Naval blockade. The U.S. Navy implemented a blockade to prevent Soviet ships from reaching Cuba. This move escalated tensions and brought the U.S. and the Soviet Union to the brink of nuclear war. 13 days. The crisis unfolded over 13 intense days, during which the world held its breath. There were fears of a nuclear exchange between the superpowers. Negotiations. Behind-the-scenes negotiations between U.S. and Soviet officials, including President Kennedy and Premier Nikita Khrushchev, took place to find a peaceful resolution to the crisis. Resolution. On October 28, 1962, Khrushchev agreed to dismantle the Soviet missile sites in Cuba in exchange for a U.S. commitment not to invade Cuba. The U.S. also secretly agreed to remove its missiles from Turkey. Legacy. The Cuban Missile Crisis is considered a major turning point in the Cold War. It highlighted the dangers of nuclear brinkmanship and led to increased efforts to establish direct communication between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, such as the creation of the Hotline for Immediate Communication. Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. In the aftermath of the crisis, the U.S., the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom signed the Limited Nuclear Test Ban Treaty in 1963, which prohibited nuclear weapons testing in the atmosphere, outer space, and underwater. The Cuban Missile Crisis is remembered as a moment when the world came close to nuclear war, emphasizing the importance of diplomatic solutions and the avoidance of direct military confrontation between major powers. It remains a landmark event in international relations and nuclear diplomacy.